MS is a neurodegenerative disease that is characterized by loss of myelin. It's a supportive structure around nerve fibers. It provides electrical insulation. Now, generation of new myelin is called as remyelination, and it's very well known now as the next frontier in the treatment for MS. We have small molecules that can generate myelin in the lab, and we've also demonstrated remyelination in animal models of MS. The company is led by a scientific pioneer, Bruce Trapp from Cleveland Clinic, and a serial entrepreneur, myself. Both Bruce and I have domain expertise in the MS industry. MS market is pretty sizable. It's, again, estimated to be $16 billion in 2016 and growing to be over $27 billion in 2025. So the company is in the discovery stage right now, and we're raising $6 million. Half of that will help us get through IND, and then the remaining half used for phase 1 feasibility trials. So starting with some details, MS, especially MS patients, have an unmet need for remyelination therapies. So most cases, the disease starts as relapsing remitting form. So that's the first half of that image that you're seeing. So when the disability goes up in MS patients, that's where the relapse, and when it comes down, it's remission. What happens in that cartoon shows you is the green, a neuron, and then a nerve fiber, and around that is that orange curving, that's myelin. So there are oligodendrocytes, those cells, the star-shaped cells in between the two fibers that are providing myelin. So in a relapsing remitting form, inflammatory cells attack myelin, and you see relapse. But then the brain has the ability to spontaneously generate new myelin, and then it comes back to normal. But after a while, it turns out to be a progressive process. It goes into a irreversible process. That's progressive neurodegeneration. What happens is the oligodendrocytes cannot make any more myelin, and now you have the nerve fiber exposed, eventually degenerates the fiber and the neuron itself. Now, thankfully, we have an opportunity to stop that process by inducing remyelination by producing new oligodendrocytes in the brain. And that's where our small molecule compounds play a very critical role. And it has been established now that remyelination protects axons and restores neurological function, and that's really our hypothesis here. Again, the market is pretty big. MS is the most common neurodegenerative disease in young adults. So it's a huge economic impact. Just in the world, over 2.3 million people, just US alone, 1 million people suffer from this disease at this time. There are 13 FDA-approved drugs that actually act in that first phase, that relapsing remitting form. And they slow the disease, but there's really nothing that helps with remyelination. And again, we talked about the market. It's a large market. And the nice thing about this is the remyelination therapies are very complementary for this anti-inflammatory therapies. They don't compete with the existing market at this point. And industry has recognized that as a great opportunity. And all these companies here have a great vested interest in this particular market. They have drugs in the market. Now, looking at competition, these are a list of actual active ongoing remyelination programs. And as you can see, there are antibodies and they're repurposing drugs. But I really want to focus on these last two companies, which we really see as true competitors for us, because they have novel small molecules and they're going after remyelination through generation of new oligodendrocytes. And more importantly, Convelo Therapeutics is a local company here in Cleveland, and they announced a collaboration with Genentech just recently. So what this slide shows is very few programs and a great industry, a great interest from the industry to be very attractive to our program. Our technology, again, we have several small molecule compounds in this space, which I've already shown to generate oligodendrocytes in vitro. We've identified a lead series that went through our proprietary in vitro as well as animal assays. And earlier this year, we received funding from MS Society that is helping us improve the characteristics of this compound and expand our IP portfolio as well. And then we expect to have a lead development candidate by mid-2020. Now, here's a list of reasons on why we selected this particular compound series. Now, if there are only two things that you're going to take away from my talk today, I want this to be number one: high potency of in vivo production of oligodendrocytes. If you look at that graph right there, red is our compound, and then after that, the dark blue and then the light blue are benzotropine and clemastine. These are known compounds. Clemastine is actually in a clinical trial for remyelination. So our compounds are twice, if not more, potent in this particular standard assay that is standard industry-wide. The second one that I want you to remember is we've already demonstrated remyelination in an animal model of MS. So what you see in that graph is the red dots is our compound. So we're actually looking at number of myelinated fibers in the brain of a demyelinated mouse, and that received our drug or control for 6 weeks. Now, this is important data because when you look at the literature, published papers on this particular model, over 40% of the drugs or compounds shown this effect in animals went on to clinical trials. So we believe there's a huge opportunity for us here because not only our compounds are potent, but we've already demonstrated animal remyelination effect. Talking about team, myself, co-inventor and co-founder, I was the CEO of a company called Renovo, which was a preclinical service provider in the MS industry space. So through that experience, I was able to develop a lot of relationships with R&D and business development in several pharma companies which are in the MS space. Then Bruce Trapp, he's the lead inventor, and he's the chair of Department of Neuroscience at Lerner Research Institute in Cleveland Clinic. And he's published over 300 articles, and he also sits on research advisory boards for several pharma companies in the MS space. Lars Nordström is our chemistry expert. He has a lot of experience in CNS space. He's involved in 8 new chemical entities, which went on to, 6 of them went on to clinical trials. And he's actually the mind behind the anticonvulsant drug Gabitril, which is in the market right now. And currently, we are in the discovery phase, and we are thinking about starting to raise money early January 2020, because by mid-2020, we will actually have a development candidate. Our goal is to raise $6 million for Series A. Half of that will be used for preclinical development, take us through all the way to IND in the first 2 years, and then 1 more year for a phase 1 clinical trial, which will be a feasibility toxicity test.